This is my one.
Oh, hon, please go away. I'll be very nervous.
Okay, ready?
Is it on?
Yeah, everything's on.
Are we on? Am I in
You're
the
on.
picture?
Everybody's on.
Okay. Action.
What I wanted to ask is, I want to go back, way back in time, and I wanted to ask your first memories. And I guess let's start with Sarah and David. And I wanted to find out, first of all, do you know of anything about your grandparents, of David's parents or Sarah's parents?
A little bit. I know that my father had a mother who had so many children. I think she had 7 or 8 children, and he was one of the last ones. And the mother couldn't take care of him, so she sent him to another mother who nursed him. And then when he was brought back to the mother after a year old, he missed the mother that he knew that was nursing him, and he was really, he said all his eyes did was follow her out of the door, and he was so upset because she left. And then the real mother didn't want to even take care of him then, that when she fed him potatoes or something, and then when he dirtied himself, she took him out in the wintertime and dumped him in a barrel of cold water. That's the memory that I have that my father told me. Yes.
What was David's parents' names?
I don't even know.
Rudoy.
Rudoy's
You mean the last name?
Yeah.
Was
Yeah. What was Bubba's name? What was Bubba's name?
Her name was Rose.
Rose? Oh,
His mother's name was Rose.
It was Rudoy.
Rose?
When they came over on the boat to America, and my father came over, people on the boat asked him what his name was, and he said Rudoy. So they shortened it to Rood because they didn't know how to spell Rudoy.
Do you remember how it was spelled? Rudoy? Was it R-O-O?
It's R-O-O-D-O-Y, I think.
I think it was R-U-D-O-I.
I don't remember.
Right.
And I don't remember.
But Rose Rudoy was David's mother's name?
Yes.
Yes.
And what about David's father's name?
The only thing I know about him was that he used to be a bricklayer like Dave was, like my father was. And one day he went up on the roof and was doing a chimney, and he died right up there. He died. We don't know what, but
Do you know how old he was when he died?
No, I have no idea. Did you know that? No, I didn't know
I didn't know that.
Well, I remember my father telling me the story.
Was Al named after him? Who was Al named after? Abe. His name was really Abraham, and he changed it to Al.
But nobody knows what
Who was
his...
he named after? Was it his
Who he was named
grandfather?
after? My brother's name? I don't know what he was named. Evidently, he must have been named after his grandfather. That's the only thing I can think of. Because they always name a person after, the person that died. It could be a grandparent. So evidently, he must have been named after his grandfather.
Where did you hear the story about that the Rudoy's name was the original name? Where did that come
My
from?
father.
Your father said that?
No,
Yeah.
my father and mother.
They both said Rudoy. So that's pretty definite.
That's definite.
Yeah.
Do you know when that change was made, when they came to the United States?
They
Yes.
came to the United States from Russia.
Okay. Now,
My
that's...
father came.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We can get to that later. What I wanted to identify is the name. So we're not sure what David's father's name was.
No.
We know that Rose was David's mother.
Right.
Okay, now Sarah's.
Now, I know a little bit about that, too. My mother was the youngest child of about 3 sisters, I think. What happened, yes. She,
I thought it was 2.
no, her mother was cooking something on the stove, I think it was, and put one of the babies on top of the stove. They used to do that when the babies were born, so the babies could keep warm. They put them on the top of the stove. Meanwhile, somebody was boiling water at the bottom part of the stove, and the baby fell into the water and was killed.
Oh.
That was one of the sisters that was...
That's why one of the sisters' babies?
Yeah.
Or one
Do you
of the
remember her
sisters'
name?
babies?
No, I don't know.
Wow.
My mother didn't even know. She was the youngest one. And when my mother was like 3 months old, her father died. So when she used to walk in the street with her own mother, she used to say, and she was maybe 2 or 3 years old, she used to say, "Did my father look like that? Did my father look like that?" She'd point out to a man who'd be walking the street because she wanted a father so badly. She never knew her father. And when her mother died, she was 5 years old, and her oldest sister raised her. And the oldest sister was very good to her, but she had a husband who was very mean to my mother. And he would, when the sister was out of the house, he would beat her. He would not let her eat. So all the food that she ever got was when he was not around, when my sister could give it to her. And this is when she met my father when she was only 7 or 8 years old, because she was girlfriends with the Spragues, with my Aunt Spraggie Anna. She was girlfriends. So my mother would always go to the Spraggie family, and evidently my father and my mother liked each other very much, and my father felt sorry for my mother, and he used to be the one to give her food. He'd sneak food to her, and he would be the one to feed her, and they became sweethearts at a very young age.
What was, getting back to your mother's sisters, what were the names of Sarah's sisters?
She doesn't.
She doesn't.
I don't remember, and she may have mentioned it, but I don't remember.
What about Rivka? Wasn't that your sister?
Rivka was my mother's. I was named after my mother's mother, whose name was Rivka.
Ah, I didn't ask that. Okay, so
Oh.
Rivka, and what was Sarah's father's name?
I don't know.
But Rivka's, that's interesting. So
Rivka was my mother's name.
okay, so we don't know then your grandfather's names on both sides?
No.
Okay.
Well, Krasnopolsky must have been her last name.
Well, Krasnopolsky was my mother's maiden name.
That was her maiden name.
So that must have been
And
her father's
she
name.
was an orphan. Her mother and
No,
father
well,
were gone when she was very young.
We talked about
Okay. Talk a little bit more how Sarah and David met, and where they met, and where they're from.
Well, they were from Minsk. I think it was either Minsk or Odessa.
Pinsk. It's from the Pinsker Society.
No. My
It was
father
near-
was
Near Kiev.
near Kiev,
Right,
yeah,
yes.
near Kiev. It was those three places I remember: Odessa, Minsk, and Kiev.
Where was Sarah born? What city was she born?
I think it's Kiev. She always says Kiev Gubernia. You know, you said that.
Well, that's like the
expressly,
state of.
Yeah. Well,
I've only heard, what's Pinsk come from? The Pinsker
Pinsker
Society.
Society
that
is
they
just the
belong
name
to.
of a society.
That's the name of a city.
No, there was a Minsk and there was a Pinsk.
Well,
I think they came from Pinsk.
No, I've never heard
Because they
Pinsk.
belong to the Pinsker.
I never heard that. My
I asked
father.
my Russian, what you call it, does the nails.
Well,
She said there was a Minsk and there was a Pinsk.
I don't remember that at all.
So either Odessa, Kiev,
Or Minsk.
or Minsk.
Yeah.
We're not sure.
No.
All the familiar.
And David? What about David? Where was
In the same area.
Hold it, Harry.
Same
Can you
area
hold
that
it
my
for a
mother.
second? 1 second.
Yeah.
Totally.
Never.
We can, yeah, we can ask you.
Same fabric?
Yeah, that's what I said. I
Is
told
it the
Helen
exact
Dean.
same couch?
Yes.
Don't you love it?
It's expensive stuff.
Sure.
Go ahead, Rick. Want to ask that question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask, did Grandma ever hear from her sisters or her side of the family
No.
Not that we
in
know.
America?
No.
Or have
Never.
a theory or know
No.
anybody that knew anything?
No.
Or
Grandma
Totally
was
lost
absolutely lonely, alone, all alone in this whole wide world.
In fact, she came
All
to
she had was
She
my
had
America.
one
father.
cousin. She
She
had one
came to
cousin.
America all by herself on the boat.
How old was she when she came?
Oh, she
About
was
19,
20.
I think.
No, she was
18 or 19,
no,
I
no,
thought.
no.
16.
She was 21.
So between 16 and 21, it's
I think she said she was 19. Because I think Grandpa was 21 when he sent for her, and then they married when she got there.
did
There's
they,
a whole story about that, too.
did they have any friends here in Detroit or New York or wherever that were from
Wait a
the same
minute, there
village?
were
Did they know?
cousins.
Did they have friends
Just
who?
cousins,
who-
relatives.
Relatives.
There's one that's still
The
wandering
Balanso
around.
family and the Shapiro family.
What about Auntie Spraggie?
That's
Sh-
relative.
That's
That's a sister.
That's
There is one
That's-
cousin of mine
that's,
that is
uh,
still roaming around.
that's Grandpa's sister.
I see her once in a great while.
cousin
I
of
don't
Ma's?
remember her name.
How do you know she's a cousin of
She
Ma's?
said so.
So
Just
David.
cousins, relatives. That's all.
So David was the first one to come to the United States.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, how did he come to the
No, he
United States?
wasn't the first
No.
one
Oh, he
here,
wasn't.
because when he came, the Balanso family was here, and so was the Shapiro family.
And wasn't Uncle Morris already here?
I'm not sure about that, but I know that he came to, they all congregated in Massachusetts. And that's where while he was there, he sent for my mother.
In Massachusetts.
in Massachusetts. And when my mother came here, they wanted to surprise my father, which made him so angry because here she's coming all the way from Europe, and they hid her in another room and wanted to surprise him when he came back from work. So that when he did come home, they brought her out of this other room, and he was furious because he was so upset that they would hide her and play a trick like that on him. And they thought it was a nice surprise, but he was pretty angry about that. But of course, that was very short-lived. And what happened was they got married very shortly after that.
Grandma came out of a closet. Is this what you're telling me? And this is how I was conceived with.
So, what year did David come to the United States? Approximately.
1907, I think. or
1907.
eight.
You know that. Why not?
Good year.
No.
Now, does anybody
Well,
know?
somebody,
Well,
when were you
because
born?
I was born in 1913, my brother was born in 1911.
So they were
And there
married
was a
in
baby that was
1911.
born dead
First
a year
baby
or
was
so
born
before
dead.
that.
Yeah,
So that
what
was
happened to that baby?
1910.
So 19
I think he came here when he was in 1909 because
Wait a
they
minute.
had children immediately.
What happened to the first baby? Why did it die?
The first
was too
baby
big.
died because she was too big. It was they had a doctor that came to the house and she couldn't give birth to it because it was
16
a
pounds?
15-pound baby.
Oh my God.
That's right.
And
Was
no
it a she or a
doctors-
he?
I think it was
It was a little
she.
girl.
What was her name? Do you know?
No, they didn't name her because she died.
She died
At birth.
at birth.
At birth.
Okay.
Do you know do you know the whole story how Grandpa was drafted into the
Yes,
army
yeah.
and how he had bad times and that
Yes.
was what inspired him to leave
Yes.
and come to America?
Yes,
Do you know how?
he was inducted into the Russian army, and it's something that he hated. We have pictures of him in his uniform with friends.
They treated them terribly. They
Yeah.
got very little to eat, a piece of black bread maybe a day,
I don't remember
and
that.
hardly any pay.
Anyhow, what happened was that he escaped. And the escape was a very miraculous thing because he went from city to city. He had to hide, and every city he went to, he laid bricks for people because he had this trade, and he was very fortunate to have the trade that he had because no matter where he went, he was able to get a job. And he eventually got to the point where he could get to a place where he could get on a boat and come to America.
They used to hide him in the basement.
This is just
Family from
in
family
Russia.
to
In Russia.
In
But once you
Russia
get
and
out,
in the other countries.
All the other countries
All
they
the other
escaped
countries
to.
besides.
Did he talk about his childhood at all?
Well, the only thing he really talked about was his mother that did not care about him.
Did he talk
They
about his father?
never bonded. They never
No, he
bonded.
didn't. I guess he was not too familiar with his father, and he must have died at a very early age. You know, when
That's
he was
why
very
he didn't
young.
know how to
Who
be a
is
father.
who is the little shadowy relative in the background that had the red beard and who may have been a shechet? Like Ma said, either that was.
Well,
they
they
described that her father was a redheaded shechet.
Whose father?
Ma's.
Ma's father
no,
was a
Ma,
shepherd.
Ma came from a higher class family than my father did, and
So?
to the point where they did not want my mother to marry my
Oh, they
father.
took all her clothes away and locked her in her bedroom.
Because
So
they
she
didn't
wouldn't
want.
go with-
They didn't want
they
her to
wouldn't
get
go with
married
our
to my father because he was just an ordinary
He was just an
bricklayer.
ordinary
Wow.
I didn't.
I remember that.
So David then
Wasn't-
didn't talk much about his child because he didn't have any.
No,
good-
he never did talk too much about.
so Grandma was from higher
I think
means,
we
but
never
fell
talked
on,
about anything.
was like someone who fell on bad times.
No, I
her
think he had.
part of the family just kind of ended up in rough shape, but but she had come from better means. That's
Right.
basically what you're saying?
So her father. What did her father do? Sarah's father do?
Sarah's father, she didn't say
She
what her
didn't know.
father, she doesn't know what her father did.
Wasn't what grandfather a shechet or a
No,
rabbi,
no,
or a
no.
shechet or something like that?
There was someone like that in the background, I
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah,
They were all
it was a relative.
No, not, I don't know.
What
We're all rabbis.
What about Sarah's memories of her childhood? Did she have any stories?
Yeah, she used to tell,
Hard,
she
it
used
was
to,
hard.
she used to tell stories about, dancing, she loved to dance.
She was a dancing teacher, actually, like.
Folk dancing. She
like
taught
him.
folk
No,
dancing.
she wasn't.
When, wait a minute,
She said she was
told me
a
when there was
teacher?
a wedding going on somewhere,
She danced,
they
yeah.
would call her and
But
she would lead the dancing.
did she
She
get
would
paid
teach
for it?
everybody, that I don't know. but she would lead everybody in the dancing, teach them the dancing. And my father happened to do the kazachka.
Yeah, he was a
Kazakhstan.
wonderful,
He was a wonderful Russian
Yes.
dancer.
yeah, he used to get
Yeah,
up
you
on
should
his knees
see
and
him.
throw his
Yeah.
legs out the
Well,
window.
you know, we've got this picture of Grandpa in traditional,
Yes,
looks like
Yeah.
Ukrainian or Russian,
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
like a dance troupe,
Yeah.
like he
He
was in a
was able
dance
to do
troupe.
all those steps that you see on television where you
But I wonder if
leap
he
up
was,
and touch your toes,
I wonder if he was in a
spin
dance
and
troupe of
do
some
that
kind.
thing where you
No,
jump
I
over
don't
your
think so.
foot.
Street dancing like today's
She
time.
never
Right.
talked
And the
about it.
photograph was American.
Like the
Oh,
red
was?
I don't think it was taken in Russia. I think
I'll
it was
be
taken
darned.
in. So I often wondered. I'm pretty sure
Well-
it was American. I wondered if he was in some kind of folk dance group.
No.
Because
New
every
York.
every wedding or every bar mitzvah we ever went to, when I was a kid, I remember he used to get up in the middle of the floor
That's
and do
right,
these
yeah.
Russian dances,
With
and everybody
me.
applauded.
With me. The two of us, he taught me how to do all those steps. And the two of us,
And
and they would
remember,
make a big ring
Helen
around
was
the
a
two of
dancing
us.
teacher. That's what my mother was too. She was a taught dancing, special for parties.
Shuffle, hop, dig, slap, step.
I remember a story about Grandma. Described something about there was a pogrom or something in her village, and,
yes.
and the soldiers came and she got hit with a sword, or she
Right.
got hit
I'll tell you that
with,
story. I know that
with
story
a
the
saber.
best. They
Well,
were
isn't that-
all went to the center of the village because they were releasing the Jewish prisoners, and all of the families of the prisoners came to greet them as they were releasing them, and they weren't allowed to be in the square. So the Cossacks on their horses came and started to chase all of the civilians that were there, and they all started to run, and Grandma, my mother, ran for a fence, and as she was trying to crawl and get away over the fence, a Cossack came along on his horse and he smacked her across the back, and she passed out, and she fell on the other side of the fence, and she never forgot
Well,
that.
these were prisoners of what? What were they prisoners?
They weren't
Jewish
prisoners, they were
prisoners.
just in the way when they were coming through.
That's not the way I heard it.
But what were they were prisoners?
The way I heard the story was that when Pa sent for Ma to come to America, she started to make arrangements to leave Russia, and on one of her journeys, she was going down the small village street, and all of a sudden, a horde of Cossacks came down the street with their thundering hooves, and in order to get out of their way, she went up to one of the little village houses to get out of their way, but she couldn't quite make it, and one of the Cossacks just smacked her across the back with the sword. I'm sorry. That's the version I got.
That's okay, you're entitled.
Well, it's all the same as the other one, it's just
Yeah, it's the
slightly
same
different.
idea.
Yeah, well, I didn't get the prisoner story, so
Same
I didn't
idea.
get that one.
Did David or Sarah talk about being any prejudice against them when they were in Russia? I mean, any direct?
Yes,
I think
Any
he said that
anti-Semitism?
the Russian
my
civilians
father,
were
my father
anti-Semitic.
used to talk, not my mother, but I remember my father telling me about that. He learned Russian because if you spoke Yiddish in front of the Russian citizens, of course you were, beaten up. So there was a lot of discrimination.
Did they speak Russian when you were growing up?
No, they spoke Jewish.
Yiddish.
What's up, Paskorniak?
That's good, yeah.
I don't know.
Is that-
Grandpa
I
could
had
speak
this too.
Russian, and he taught me a couple of words like
Das Vidanya.
"Dasvidanya" and
What's that?
It
"spasiba."
says goodbye.
"Spasiba" means please or thank you.
I didn't get that.
No, so he did know. He did speak
Yeah,
Russian.
he
I
understood.
think they
He's
must
done-
have
he
both.
understood it very well. He just
Both of
didn't
them
speak,
must have
yeah.
been
Yeah.
able to speak
They
Russian
both understood it.
fluently because living in Russia, they probably knew both languages well.
So when did they speak English? When did they learn how to speak English?
Who said they learned?
Well, when
I remember my father went to school, when he
Night
came
school.
to high school, and learned how to read and write the English
Yeah.
language.
they picked
My-
up the language.
yeah,
from
I went to
work.
school with my mother. This is a funny story. I went to school with my mother. Of course, it's a little bit risque. I went to school with my mother, and I was in class
Make
with
sure
her.
it's clean now.
You were in school
And
with
then
her?
the teacher wrote words on the board, and evidently there were several. The class had already attended to this class several times. This was the first time for my mother, and he wrote the word "fox" on the board. And then and he said, "What's this word?" And somebody said "fox." She started to laugh so hard. She never went back to school.
Dutch into English.
And then we went to, we lived on a street, it was like Hancock Street, and she'd call it Cockeye Street.
She had the most fabulous sense of humor.
Yeah.
She was the cutest lady.
That's a good. I would like to talk about their personalities.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Talk
My
about-
mother
She
had
was
a laugh
adorable.
where when
She
she
was
laughed,
adorable.
everybody had to laugh. Very infectious laugh. She's a-
She saw humor in everything.
Yeah.
And she was like a little girl.
Yeah, she was.
And
Never
she was
grew
one
up.
of the girls.
Never
She
grew
was
up.
never like the mother. She was just one of the girls. She was the fifth daughter.
Yeah, and I hear my father say to me that she still thinks she's 16 years old, you know?
Yeah.
She still thinks she's 16.
And remember when she would go into the hospital and she'd say to the doctor, don't put me with anybody too sick, just a little bit sick.
Was she ever skinny?
Never,
No.
never, I never saw
Not
her.
skinny,
You know,
but
she-
she was thinner.
But no, the
When she
reason
got
she
older.
got heavy, she said, because when she was in Russia, she was always hungry, starving, there was never enough to eat. She came to America, there was so much food available, so she really took it all in.
Yeah, especially when
She
she was
did.
pregnant. She ate and ate and ate. I bought the best nuts. The best nuts, and I ate all the nuts, and I ate all the best foods. She was going to give that baby everything the best.
Oh, she
And
believed
she-
in that. When
she
she was
believed,
pregnant,
yeah.
she ate the best of food so that the babies would be the healthiest.
That's why the
She
first
was
baby.
much too
Very maternal.
much too overly concerned about our health.
Yeah.
And we had a family that lived next door, and the mother was a nurse, an ex-nurse. And the least little sniffle, the least little problem we had, she would wake this woman up in the middle of the night to come over and look at us.
Yeah.
And
Not only that, but I remember mornings, we would march down the stairs on our way to breakfast. She'd have us all
Oh
lined
my
up.
God.
And
that
she
was.
would listen to our hearts to see if our hearts were beating properly.
Yes,
Is that
and you
right?
know what else she would
She
do?
knew how to
Every
listen.
night she'd go upstairs and listen to see if we were all breathing. And then the next day she'd say, well, Al breathed the nicest. So the next night I decided I was going to be the one. So I held my breath the whole time. And she kept listening and listening, and I held my breath. I said, oh my God, when is she going away? And I held my breath the whole time.
Did she call?
And then
Did she call 9/11?
But you know what's interesting is that's something that they do in the old world. Like
Guess
in the
what?
Far
They
East
did?
and everything. They
They
do.
listen to their
Guess
breathing.
what?
Yeah,
It
they
made
do
me.
all that stuff.
You know what it made me? It made me
Neurotic.
No, not only neurotic. I had a phobia about not being able to breathe.
How old were you when she was pregnant?
We were like 9, 10, 11.
Oh my, you were big kids.
Oh yeah, yeah. And you can imagine what she did when we were younger. When I don't remember.
Did they have any out of whatever they did, you know, to survive or whatever? Was there any what we call now hobbies or things like this? What were their interests?
She
Poker?
used to. No, my mother used to. My mother used to make all our clothes.
Yeah.
I remember the sewing machine.
Sewing machine,
Yeah.
and she also knitted. She knitted beautiful sweaters for herself. She knitted for me. She once made me a dress. And the thing is that I liked
Just
about the
for you.
dress was she embroidered a bird's nest on the top of this dress, and I was so embarrassed to go to school with having a bird's nest with birds in it.
Like a picture? You mean like a little
Yeah,
a
a
little
picture of
illustration?
Or
3
embroidered,
birds in a
you mean?
nest.
Embroidered.
Yeah, embroidered.
Oh.
She was a very good seamstress. I mean, she was trained for that. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
she did when she was in Europe when she was working.
Where did Eve come from? How did you get your name Eve?
Well, actually,
Adam's
it was
rib.
Rivka, my mother's, and it was supposed to be Rebecca. And somehow somebody told her Rebecca was a black woman's
Whoa,
name.
that's Diana, that's my name.
Both of us.
No, my name is really Diana, but she changed it because my aunt told her it was a Schwartz's name. So she changed it to Dorothy.
Changed it?
Yeah.
She
Changed
called me Dorothy instead of Diana.
What did your birth certificate say?
Diana.
Your birth
My
certificate says
birth certificate is Diana.
your name is Diana.
My name is
And you know what mine says? You got it from my name is Eva Ruda, R-U-D-A is on my birth certificate.
R-U-D-A.
R-U-D-A.
That's interesting.
Instead
It's
of
still
rude.
on your birth certificate?
Yeah.
Can I tell you something about my father? He used to love animals and birds.
Yeah.
I remember watching him.
Pigeons. Oh,
Pigeons.
Pigeons?
He would put some food in his mouth, bread or something,
I remember.
and
that.
the birds would come and eat it out from his mouth. And he loved those animals.
yes.
He
He
would
did.
bring home stray dogs
Stray
to the house,
cats.
stray cats, stray dogs. He loved animals. he was real good to them too.
Wow, that's interesting.
One day a bird came to get the food and bit his lip, and I think that's when he stopped.
Bit his tongue, he's got a black tongue from it.
Yes, he
Got a
did.
black
Tongue
mark
mark
on
I
it.
don't think that ever left.
No, it stayed with him.
Gee.
What else about David? What other memories do you have?
He was a speech maker.
You know what? I remember
He loved
as a
to
little
get up
girl-
and make speeches.
as a little girl. Yeah, that's one thing too, Betty. But
And
you know,
and I would go to the Pinsker meetings with Grandma, with my mother, and she'd be sitting in the audience with me, and they would call up my grandpa, my father, to make a speech, and he'd always have a wonderful speech, and everybody would applaud him. And as soon as he was getting close to the end of the speech, she would grab me. She'd say, "Come on, Helen," and she would make me run out of the room because she was afraid they would call her. She had stage fright.
oh,
Remember?
I don't
Did that
remember.
ever
I
that.
don't remember.
No,
that.
but what I do remember is when I was a little girl. One day he came
That's
home,
where I got it.
and all of a
Stage
sudden
fright.
he takes a harmonica out of his
Just
pocket,
occurred to me.
and he starts to play the harmonica,
Oh,
and he
that's
played
right.
a beautiful tune. And I was never so amazed in all my life the
Huh?
fact that
Yeah, I remember
that he
that.
brought a harmonica home and he was able to play it. He also was able to pick up tunes on the piano without ever taking a
You're
lesson.
kidding.
Yeah, yeah, he did that.
Did you have a piano in your house when you were growing
No,
up?
no, but wherever we went, who had a piano, he
Later.
was able to play it.
Where did you learn how to play the piano?
Just natural artistic talent. That's where Helen got.
Well,
we all
I
got-
had heard that he was in the choir in the synagogue
I don't remember that.
when he was a little boy.
Oh my
Really?
God, all these artistic talents I didn't know he had.
Yeah.
Did he sing?
He played the piano.
No.
Did he
No, he
sing?
never sang.
My mother used to sing.
I don't remember.
My
him
mother
singing.
used to sing, and I used to hear her. I was upstairs, and she'd be singing, working in the kitchen and singing.
What kind of songs did
There
you
is
sing?
gekommen a cuisine,
Yiddish.
schenkt the gold, is eagerling the green. That's all
Did
I
she
remember.
make you girls eat the same way she made her grandchildren eat when they were?
Yes.
Oh,
Betty and
it was
I
like,
had to drink
eat,
2
eat,
glasses of
eat,
milk
Eat. Everything
at
was there
every
was eat,
sitting, and
eat.
Yes.
I didn't know I had lactose intolerance.
I used to complain about
And
that.
she and I used to get so nauseous that we would have to run around the block.
Yeah, she'd make me drink.
Remember
Yeah,
That was
make me drink.
laxativity.
No, my
Laxative.
mother called Betty the green Java because her complexion was pale and green. That's why she forced her to drink the cream from the top of the bottle of the milk.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're the one.
Oh,
huh,
girl.
Betty?
She's the one that got the
The
cream.
top of the, the cream
I
on
was
top.
the sickly one, huh?
Green Java, I was called.
Frog was young.
Oh,
Yeah.
Betty, not you.
Green Java.
Betty was the green
A green frog.
I think we left out. Betty, where did you get your?
Oregon.
Where's your name?
Look who's wearing green top there. Look who's wearing green.
I'm a Green Java.
Where is your name from? How did you get your name?
Betty.
My name is not a Betty. My,
Her name is Bella. Bella. Shh, don't tell anybody. Bella, that's right.
my real name is Bella, and it's on my birth certificate.
Now,
It's
let's get this
Bella.
straight.
Well, my real name isn't Eva either.
What is your real name?
My name was Rebecca.
You're Rebecca.
This is Diana. I'm
Bella.
Diana. This is Bella.
You're Bella.
Helen.
Helen was
And here all these years, I thought how different my mother was to name us such unusual
Yeah.
names for a Jewish family. Dorothy, Eve, Betty.
No, really.
It's Rosie and Esther and Sarah.
But on your birth certificate, it's Bella.
It's Bella.
How's your last name spelled?
R-O-O-D.
Rude.
Rude.
So it's
And what about your birth certificate?
Rude.
Ruda?
Diana Rude.
No, mine was R-U-D-A.
It's amazing.
We're not related, by the way.
How did your parents meet? And where did they meet?
Oh,
Yeah.
I just told you.
In Russia. In Russia.
When they
Okay.
were 8 years old, 8 and 10 years old.
Your child was
She
So-
was,
so-
she was Auntie Scroggy's girlfriend.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. And can you? Did they have stories about the boat trip
Yes.
to the United States?
Yes,
What that was
my mother
like?
did.
What was
She
it?
was a very frightened woman because she came all by herself, and she was told, "Don't talk, don't say anything, just don't talk. Make believe like you can't say a word, and whatever they say to you, you just like shrug your shoulders." And this is how she came over. I mean, I don't know how she got through Ellis Island, but evidently she did. Maybe she had certain papers. She had to have papers.
I remember something that she
What?
told me that they put her in prison.
Right. The first time they
Oh,
caught her,
my.
she didn't have
Didn't
a
have her
visa.
paper.
something like that.
Where was the prison?
She
In the
was
United
sneaking,
States?
she was sneaking across the border or something.
Which border?
I don't know if it was on the boat or if it was
And
in
they
the
caught her
United
and put her
States.
in
I just
prison.
knew she was in prison for a while.
And then all the villagers that found out all came with baskets of fruit, vouched for her, and they got her out.
I remember that she told me a story once about being detained on her way to the United States and about being with another woman who was trying to smuggle something through, and she told my mother that this woman hid it in one of her private parts so that
Oh
I
my
remember
God.
not be
that.
discovered.
I don't remember that.
I
And-
do.
Yeah. And I thought this was a very interesting side story.
Jewelry? Diamonds?
Something,
I don't know.
something of value.
Could have been money.
Money could have been paid.
Did she talk to you specifically what the steps she went through to escape
No.
Russia?
No, I guess that,
It's
I
kinda sketchy.
know.
It is sketchy.
No, she just, it is sketchy, yeah.
Didn't she talk about how seasick she was?
No,
Did she say
See,
what
I don't
boat
know.
she came on? What,
No.
She doesn't remember what boat?
no,
And David again was here already.
yes.
Did he talk about how he escaped from?
Well, just
Russia?
from going city to city, working his way back to, and being
He used
frightened
to
that he
tell
was
that
gonna
story
be,
for hours, and he
Yeah.
used to tell it to Pete,
yeah.
and
Where did he leave from? What port, do you
Pete
know?
maybe be,
I don't
whatever.
know.
Where's Pete? Where's Pete?
What town did he leave from?
I
England? Did
do
he leave from
remember.
Russia?
He told Bud and Pete, you remember they used to sit around, and he would talk for hours. He would go into detail every city, every country.
No, I do remember my mother and father saying that when people wanted to leave Russia and come to the United States, the government or the soldiers, whoever's in power, took all their possessions away and their money. They had no money whatsoever when they came across the United States. They were totally poor.
And David came by himself or with
By
some?
himself.
By himself.
By himself also. Did he have any relatives?
Yeah, that's the Blanso and Shapiro family.
Okay,
yeah.
what families? How are they related to?
Let's see, the Shapiro family, they were cousins.
First
First cousins.
on the father or mother's side?
On the father's side, not on the mother's side.
Yeah.
no.
So they were Roods too.
No, well, yeah.
Father's side.
Well, but after they were married.
Unless
they
they're-
were
yeah,
different.
okay.
Yeah.
But they were from the Roods
Yeah.
side. And Belasco? Belasco?
Balanzo.
How do you spell that? B-L?
Balanzow.
Is there any any contact with the Balanzo family or the Shapiro
Yeah,
family?
we've had contact with them all along in our childhood, up until, we all got married and sort of scattered around, but, we had been in contact with them all through the years.
And when's the last time you've heard from them?
Well, I heard from them just about a year ago. I saw Dan Balanzo, saw my picture in the paper, from the Center
Florida.
for Group House, from the center, that I did volunteer work, and he called me up to say, is that your picture? Are you Eve Rood? Are you married to Pete? You know, that kind of thing. And I said, yes. He says, oh, and you have sisters named Betty and Helen and Dorothy? And I said, yes. He says, well, he says, you're my cousin. And we met and we got together several times and did a few social things.
So there's
that
family-
was only about a year ago that happened.
And they live in Florida?
They live in Florida.
And what are their names? Dan, did you say?
Dan, uh-huh.
And who's the other?
His wife's name, I think it was,
And do they have any kids?
yeah, grown. I never did meet them.
And the Shapiros, what about their
The
family?
Shapiros,
How are they related
I haven't seen them since I left Detroit. I don't know whether you guys ever see them here. Do you, the Shapiros? There was Ida Shapiro.
I see Peck's,
You see
Sylvia Peck.
and that's she's a Balanzo though.
She's from the Balanzo.
She's a Balanzo.
I see her all the time.
What about the young couple that lived across the street from you? Who are they? He's a painter or she's a painter?
Who were these Russian
Well, really
people
not.
that somebody tried to run down that said were related to somebody here a few years ago?
Oh,
that some,
we thought they might be relatives of
Rudoy.
Rudoy from
Rudoy, yeah.
the.
whatever, let's talk about that a little bit. Maybe
I
that's a
still see
connection.
them.
Is that,
You still
We
have
see them.
contact
Yeah,
with them?
yes, we
Yes,
call
but I
each
thought
other.
it was determined that there's no relationship.
No, nothing has ever been proven. They can't prove it, we can't prove it.
just that the last names are similar?
Well,
Rudoy.
they say that
Rudoy.
name is common though, isn't it in Russia?
Yes.
Rudoy, yeah.
Or is it Krasnopolsky that's common?
But the interesting thing is he was in the building business, he's a constructional engineer. And they came from Kiev, which was where, same area. And he looks like our uncles, I think.
Now, just to back up, Grandpa had no brothers or sisters?
Oh, yes.
He had a sister, Auntie Sprague, Auntie Ann
Yeah, let's give
Sprague.
the relatives.
And then there was Barney Rood,
I remember
and there was Morris Rood.
Morris, Rood, and Barney.
Barney, I think I remember.
And then there was a brother they were able to contact in Russia who they corresponded with for a while.
So he never came to the United
He
States?
never came to the United
Do
States.
you know his name? Remember
No,
his name?
I don't remember.
It's rude.
No, I mean his first name.
No, I don't.
Didn't
I
Al
think it
Sprague
was-
just not too long ago, find that one of our uncles or cousins was a Russian general?
I don't remember that.
You don't? None of you?
No.
I remember seeing a picture. I remember seeing a picture of
Grandpa?
that Grandpa got of his brother.
Yes,
and-
with
and
a
it took-
beard,
and
got
it
a
was in-
beard. And
it's
his
like a-
wife, yeah, his wife and I
He
think
looked
there
like
was-
he looked like a religious
Yes,
guy.
yes, yes.
He looked like a religious guy,
Yes.
and I seem to remember that the picture, the letter of the picture was in the mail system for a long time. Like it took a long time for that mail to reach him or something.
Who was the oldest in the family? Was David the oldest, or Morris the oldest, or who was?
No, I think, there
I
was a
think
brother that
Barney
still,
was the oldest.
there were two brothers in Europe yet. One of them was killed during the pogrom.
What was his name?
I think it was Louis.
Louis?
I'm not sure, but I think it was Louis. They called him Louis.
And Louis the oldest?
No, I don't know whether he was the oldest or not, but he never came to here. And don't forget, they were, and I remember how Auntie Sprague, and it got hysterical, and she was screaming and carrying on because they found out that the brother was killed.
So, what year was this about?
Let's see.
Was this during World War
I was like, I think I was like 7 or 8 years
Oh,
old.
so you were already born when this happened?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you think he might have been the oldest in the family?
No, he
Oh, he
was not
wasn't.
the oldest. He was not the oldest.
Who was the oldest?
I don't
I
know.
think Morris.
Well, of all the
Morris-
3 brothers that were
Morris-
here,
Morris is
Barney was
not.
the oldest.
Barney was
Barney
the
was
oldest?
And Morris was the youngest.
And then
My father was in
and
between.
then Morris.
I think Auntie Sprague was
Oh, yes.
younger than my father, was she? She may have been a couple of years younger than my
I
father.
think she was between Barney and Pa, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
So up into this, up into the Second World War, there was still some kind of correspondence going on. Sounds like between.
Probably more.
Between
Yeah,
your brother and
yeah,
second family.
because they found out that he was killed. That's
Sprague
right.
family
How was he
will-
killed? Do they know?
I don't know. He was just killed. Who knows?
You know that? Al Sprague was more in contact with the
He,
relatives.
you mean he knew?
Than we
Yeah.
did.
It would be
Remember
interesting
there
to
was
get.
another long lost brother that came up after everybody had passed away?
Well, yeah, that's the one we're talking about with the beard. The one that Ricky said was the picture that
Oh,
he
that's
saw.
the one?
Yeah.
Pete, didn't my father tell you the whole story about how he escaped from Russia?
He told us once there, but I don't remember exactly.
He's just in the army and he just got away, that's all, just ran away.
He wasn't,
He took
that's all.
off
He
and
had
then
a
it
lot of interesting stories. He went on and on and on.
But I don't recall them really going into detail about how they left Russia and came to the United States.
Well,
That you could
Well, do you
probably
think
write
he
a
was-
book on
Do
their
you think he was out of danger once he got out of the Soviet Union?
Yeah,
No,
but he
no,
worked
he
in
was
a
not out
couple
of
other
danger.
countries as he came across.
yeah, he was not out
And
of
he worked in
danger. He was
Germany.
always, he was not out of danger. He was always in danger of being
Because he had
caught.
no papers or?
No, he
Because
was
he was
always
a
in
Jew,
danger.
that's why.
He was a deserter.
He was
He
a
was a
Jew,
deserter,
and
that's right.
Yeah, but I would think once you got out of the country, you're running away from, you're sort of in the clear.
Well, that may be so, but he didn't have any money, so maybe that's why he worked through his way through the rest of the countries that he was went through. Because he was determined he was going to go to America.
What made him think of America and not to another country and settle in another European country?
You know, he never said, he never
Because his
told us.
brothers, well, were his
The
brothers
relatives
here?
Unless there's some relatives of the
And
Blanchard
wrote him how
family.
wonderful it was here, I suppose.
Oh, maybe, that may
Land
be
of
so.
milk and honey, yes.
Right.
That may be so.
That's it.
So when they first came, when David first came, he settled in Massachusetts
Yes.
first. Do you know where in Massachusetts?
Yeah, Holyoke.
Holyoke?
Yeah, that's where I was born.
You were born in Holyoke?
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't it Holyoke?
Where was Al born?
He was born in Holyoke also.
And
I
where were
was
you born?
She was born in
Springfield,
Springfield.
Massachusetts.
You were in,
Springfield,
oh, so you were born in Massachusetts too? Good.
Springfield.
And Al's the oldest, right?
Yes.
Okay. Did Al have any memories? Did he talk to you when
My
he was
brother, you
older?
mean?
Yeah, about your parents. Did he have any
No.
stories or anything?
No.
Not that we recall.
So how did everyone get to Detroit?
Oh, because my father, because there was more business in Detroit than there was in Massachusetts, and he wanted to go where the work was. So when I remember we came here when I was 5 years old, and Dorothy must have been about 2, and Al must have been about 6.
Did you
or
live
seven.
with the
We
Spragues,
moved
Steve?
in with the Spragues.
We moved in with the
The
Spragues.
Spraggie
yeah.
family. He had a dry goods store downstairs, and then his house was upstairs above it.
And that was a temporary thing
And
until we found a
we
place
all
of our
lived
own.
together. I don't know how long it was.
What was the house near Wyoming on the corner?
Petoskey.
No? Oh, near Wyoming and something, it was on the corner.
Your house?
That
No,
maybe
the-
Uncle
he
Al
built
built. Was that just a spec house that they built?
That was a spec
That's
house.
further
Okay,
back.
nobody ever lived there?
No.
That was,
He lived there for a short time.
No,
Grandpa and Grandma lived
Yeah.
no,
there.
they lived on Steel. They never moved into that house on Kentucky.
Yes, they did.
Kentucky, the courthouse in
Kentucky.
Kentucky.
No, they
Right.
never moved in that one. They
No.
sold it. He built it and
They
sold
moved
it.
in on
At a
Steel.
farm. That's the one-
Eva,
Yes.
did the house on Petoskey, was that a brand new house or
Yes.
was it
Yes.
a used house?
No,
No,
brand new,
brand new.
brand new, and it was a wood house. It wasn't, there's no brick on it. Here, he's a bricklayer and he moved into a wood house.
So
That's the house that got taken away by
That's
the
the house
expressway.
I
Yeah,
lived
right,
in for
right.
21 years.
so when you first came to Detroit, you stayed with the Spragues,
Yes.
and then
Then we moved to 29th Street. And 29th Street was on Michigan Avenue. It was a kind of a neighborhood, you know, like everybody else lived. So it wasn't like we were poor and everybody else was rich. It was like the same kind of a situation. And we lived upstairs from a man named Bushelcocker.
What?
He made so much trouble for my father that he made so much trouble because we lived downstairs. We lived upstairs and they lived downstairs, and they were always bound because we were, you know, 3 kids upstairs. I guess we were noisy, so he used to bang up with the broom, and then my father would bring stuff from bricklaying, maybe some bricks or whatever, and he complained, always complaining. And then one day my father goes out in the backyard, and by this name he was named Bushelcocker because he was in the business of vegetables, and he always had a lot of bushels around, you know, bushels of vegetables. So my father named him Bushelcocker. And then what happened? So what happened was, one day my father was downstairs, and this Bushelcocker
Is your
comes
mom
out, and my
Great.
father, they got into a big fight, and my father hit him with a hammer. And they took my father to court.
Oh,
I didn't hear that story.
Oh yeah, they took him to court and they threw it out because the neighbors always complained about the same man. So he had such a bad reputation that they didn't do anything to my
He
father.
deserved to be hit in the head.
He did, yeah. I think he punched him in the eye first, and then the other guy came at him with a hammer. I don't know, but it was one of those things. And then shortly after that, we moved out.
Wow.
But I remember
when we
the
moved in-
Bushelcocker.
when we moved into the house on Petoskey, I understand that it was still farmland.
Oh
There were
yeah.
chickens and pigs and
Well,
Right.
the streets weren't even paved. There was no, it wasn't paved, and we lived next door to some friends, people called the Barrel Hall. I don't know if you ever heard the name Barrel Hall. And they had a family of 12 people, 12 kids. He was a kind of a rabbi, a chef, what they called. He used to
Kill chickens?
kill cows.
Oh,
He used to
cows.
slit the cows' throats. And he'd always bring home great big packs of liver, you know, from the cows that they anyhow.
and remember
We became very close.
And that's
I mean,
where chopped liver came from.
no, we were very close to that.
We were there
We
in the
were-
very beginning.
We were very close to that family.
So
because-
from 29th Street, then where did you move? Well, how long were you there for?
29th Street, we
Yeah.
were there for a few years. And then
So
we...
wait a minute. You were there, Aunt Dorothy, you were there. Aunt Betty, were you born yet?
No,
Oh, okay, so this is
I was
before.
born on Petoskey.
Okay.
Aunt Betty and Aunt Helen were born in Petoskey. After we bought the house, you know...
You were born in
that wood house.
hospitals or you born at home?
I was born in home, Dorothy was born at home, and Helen Betty was born in the hospital.
In home.
And Uncle
Did you have
Al
help?
was born at home.
At home.
Did you have help? Was there like doctors or nurses, or was just,
No, there was a doctor that came.
Your
to
mother
the house.
weighed 12 pounds.
Well, I remember Dorothy being born.
know
I
that?
was all 2 years and 9
Eva was
months
12
old.
pounds.
And my mother was in the bedroom.
You were
if
10
really want to
pounds.
know. My
I
mother was in the
remember. I
bedroom.
remember that.
And she was like, I could hear her make noises. And I walked into the room right after she was born. And I saw my mother lying on newspapers that were all bloody. And this baby was right alongside of her. And my father takes one look and he sees me and he says, "Never a rice from here." You know, like, "Get her out of here," meaning me. And I remember being pushed out of there. But I saw the baby and I saw my mother. I saw her right after you were born.
Wow.
How about that, baby?
Never forgave her.
newspapers?
On this
No,
paper.
no, did you
Remember
know?
what the newspapers said?
Eve, you
still
were
got
12
the print
pounds,
on my
right?
back.
I
Eve?
mean,
Yeah,
bird cages, you put
I weighed
newspapers
12.
in the bottom of
Hey,
bird
this
cages.
is important. This is important. You weighed
Oh,
12
a lot of
pounds.
cotton batting too.
How much did you weigh, Dorothy?
You said 10, I don't, how am I gonna?
I think, wasn't she 10?
My mother had all big babies.
And I was 11 3/4.
And the smallest baby was Betty. She only weighed
I was about 7, wasn't
7 pounds,
Yeah.
13 ounces.
That's still a good size.
That's still a good size.
How heavy was Al?
Al was big, all
Al,
big babies. All big
Well,
babies.
the one they lost was what, 13 pounds?
15 pounds.
15 pounds.
God.
Couldn't be born. I mean, we crushed the head. I mean, it couldn't come out.
Wow. Okay, so from 29th Street then, where?
29th Street, that's when we,
What year was that when you left 29th Street? About.
I was about 11 years old.
You were born in.
I was 11 years old when we moved to Petoskey.
Okay. You were born in
1913,
so it was about
Yes.
1928,
something like that. Yeah.
No,
1924.
19, I was born in 1925, and I'm 12 years
1924.
younger than Andy.
Oh, that's all right, babe. That's okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I was just trying to pin
No,
down
I'm
the
just
fact
teasing. I'm
that
teasing.
you probably moved there in 1924. You're right.
1924.
Yeah.
And you were
23,
born.
24, because I was born in 25.
And that's when you were born.
October 23.
And what was in? Do you remember what the neighborhood was like in Petoskey?
Yes, it was a lovely neighborhood. We had, see, it's like everybody knew everybody. We knew the people across the street. We knew the people next door, 3 doors down, 3 doors this way. We knew everybody on the block practically. And this is the part that I miss the most nowadays, where you don't have that nowadays. You know, neighbors just don't, it just isn't the same. But we knew everybody on the block.
Who was the family across the street, like Winter or?
That was
Wittenberg.
Wittenberg,
And the Gittlemans,
the Gittlemans,
and the Bearhalls.
the Bearhalls, and the Driscolls,
Yes.
the Bethmans.
Right. You remember her.
I can remember names.
How was
Pashers.
How was it growing up Jewish with the name Rood?
How was it? It wasn't.
Was there any?
No, nobody
No
ever.
problems.
All they had to do was look at us and they knew.
So then, just describe. How long were you at Petoskey? On Petoskey?
Oh,
Long time.
Long. 21 years. Is that?
Oh, I was 21 years.
well, if I moved there when I was 10,
20 years.
let's say 10, and I got married when I was 20, almost, I was 25.
So about 15 years.
So I'd say 15, and then they stayed there after that
after
too.
that. Okay.
So they were there when Sharon was born. They were still there.
I remember Petoskey, don't I?
Yeah.
Sharon was.
Well, we moved out to
And
Petoskey.
Michael,
was Sharon's
and
Sharon
even when
was a
Michael was
drawer,
born,
dresser
it was,
drawer.
they were still
What
there.
year were you
Still there.
married?
49.
1949.
I was
And
married
I
in
think-
38.
I think they moved from Petoskey not too long after you married, because they built the house on steel.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to comment, gee, all these years when they had 5 children, we were raised in this small little 3-bedroom frame house. But after we were all married and out,
Then they go and build
they
a
built
brick
this
house.
beautiful brick house, twice the size,
Right,
for just the two of
people.
them.
right,
That's what Grandpa could afford to do.
right,
Yes,
Right.
of course.
right.
So when?
But, so I'm just trying to give you a time
Yeah.
frame. So I think that possibly the family left Petoskey around 1951, 52, do you think?
He never borrowed money, did he? He always
No.
paid cash.
Cash.
and
No,
said to
he, and
himself,
he was a very
Yes.
proud man,
he
very
would never
proud man.
borrow money for
Yes.
anything.
Right.
Very proud.
David was financially a proud person, as we were saying, would never think to borrow money.
No.
If he
Wait a
didn't
minute.
have it, he would do without.
Didn't we live on Petoskey during the Depression in
Yes.
1933?
Yes.
What was that like?
That
Describe.
was real
That was
rough.
terrible.
Era.
We had to go on welfare for
They
a while.
lost all their money in the bank.
And my brother, your father, and my father had to work for the welfare department. WPA, they would call it then, work
Really?
on the roads.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yes.
For how long? How long ago?
I understand, that was a couple years.
How old could Al have
They-
been?
in other words-
Al worked for the CCC.
Grandpa had money in the bank and the bank went under?
The bank
so-
went under, and he used to take all 5 of his children to the bank, say, look, I have 5 children, and you're not giving me any money to feed my family. And the bank was, I mean, they just couldn't do anything. They think they allowed him to take a little bit of money out. I'm not sure.
And it never was recovered? That
No.
money was never, that was before there was a
No.
guarantee,
No. No.
I remember that when my father left to work in New York, I cried so hard that my mother took me, and I think I must have been maybe 4 or 5 years old, to the Piccadilly Theater, because that was my favorite place to go, and bought
Norman
me
used to go there too.
and bought me a balloon and just rocked me and tried to get me to stop crying. To me, that was the most horrible thing, was when my father left to go to New York.
Is that right?
We were
Grandma was
without-
good with the children,
It
right?
was
She
terrible.
She was very good with the
Yes.
children.
Grandma?
She was in
Yeah.
there with the family.
Yeah, she was
She was
a
there
very
whenever
motherly
you needed
mother, yeah.
She stood up for you, and she was absolutely fight for you, and
Yeah.
Yeah.
She'd scratch your eyes out.
Once, my brother,
Oh, yes.
your father, had a fight with some boys in the backyard, and it looks like he was going to get beaten up pretty bad. And my mother came out with a kitchen knife and chased him all away. She said, "Get away from my Al!" She'd say, "Get away from my Al! Get out of here,
My
everybody!" And she'd
Abby,
wave
are you
that knife
kidding me,
around.
Al? My Abby.
what was his name? Did you hear this?
His real name,
His real name was
his real
Abraham.
name was Abby.
Abraham on his birth
What was it
Babe
like?
Ruth. Babe Ruth.
What was it like for Al growing up with 4 sisters?
Oh, we got a story. Now it's getting interesting.
You know, it was a bathroom with 4 girls in the house, and he
And
was-
the
Well,
newspaper.
wait a minute, 7 people and 1 bathroom.
Yeah.
I was in the bathroom once and Al wanted to get in. He was knocking on the door and I said, "I'm not done yet." Knocked the door down.
And once,
You know
guess what
what?
else? We locked him out of the house because he was so angry with us, you know. We locked him out of the house, and I think I threw a can of tuna fish out the window at him. He was so angry. Oh, and I thought, I don't dare let him in now. I don't dare let
How
him in.
many times did you come home to Pinehurst and find me outside with Sharon locked me out? and let me out? You remember that?
Oh,
You
really?
remember that?
No, I don't.
Dad, you remember that?
Sharon,
No.
Mom's there.
She remembers.
Was Al protective of you in
Yes,
school?
yes.
Did you go to school at the same time?
Yeah, I did. I did.
He
Yeah.
was protective.
He was
with-
very, and I was protective of him too,
with
because when he
dating.
got into a fight with some boys at school, and I was standing on the outside, and I said, "Don't hit my Al, don't hit my Avy." I know my Avy, don't hit my Avy. I used to say, "Don't hit my Avy." And then when we went to kindergarten, at the same time, and
Why?
and they separated me from my brother because he was a little older than I was, but we were in the same class. And I kept saying, "I want to be with my Abby. I can't be with them." Oh, I cried and cried. See, but while we were in the house, we fought. Once we were out of the house, we were very protective of each other. I used to go in the corner when I was a teenager and play, talk with the boys and the girls or whatever, and he would let me stay there. He says, "Go home, go home, go home." He just didn't want me hanging around with the kids out there.
When did he change his name and why did he change his name from A to
Because he
Al?
didn't like AB, so he started calling
I think he
himself
was
Al.
picked on at school.
Yeah, AB, AB.
Made
They say
fun
AB. This is the good name. AB.
So that was discrimination.
Of course, of course.
Talk also more about growing up on Petoskey.
On Petoskey?
Yeah. What
Well,
was like? You said it was rough. What
It
kind
was rough. No, it was, to me, it was we had a wonderful, wonderful time because we had friends that were neighbors, like next door. Pauline Bearhall was my girlfriend, and and her sister used to work in the telephone company, and then the equipment that they didn't want to use anymore, like phones, headphones and things, she brought them home, and we would go in the basement and play telephone operators. So we had good times with that.
Four sisters sleeping in one bed.
Yeah,
No,
four
no,
sisters.
three.
Yes.
Excuse me, let's hear about three
Uh,
days.
Even I used to have
Pretty bad.
something really upsetting happen. I have a habit of cracking my knuckles, and she couldn't stand it. So she'd take the elastic from her pants or pajamas and snap it. Have a contest. That's the longest.
This is important, this is information.
Oh, and this is another one I never minded if she wore my clothes, but she would not let me wear anything of hers.
That's because yours weren't clean and hers were.
You're right.
That's what I had with Betty.
So once she
I would be scrubbing my knuckles off, getting my clothes.
So once she got
starching it
so
and
mad at
ironing
me.
it
Oh,
in
it was so
hours.
nice. It was so
She'd
nice
have
to
a
go to
date and
school.
she'd go take my
She
clothes
had
and I
clean
would.
clothes. She had a clean blouse. So once I wore something of hers, and she got so mad at me that she took my girdle and cut all the garters off. And I got so mad at her that I took a sweater of her and cut all the buttons off. That was something.
And
So
once,
Grandma was busy sewing.
when
all the
Helen, I'll
everything
remember
back,
this.
trying to keep everybody.
You know, I have fond memories of our backyard.
The cement mixer?
Grandpa was a mason contractor, as you
The
know.
cement mixer.
And he had all of his materials in the backyard. There was no such thing as a flower garden or grass.
No.
It was all planks.
Yeah, one of those
Like
cement
cement
mixers
mixers
back
and a
there.
cement, and a
Bricks
cement
and blocks.
mixer and piles of bricks.
And,
But you know what? My biggest pleasure
Oh,
was
I know.
we used to play hide and seek.
Oh.
And we would,
Hi.
and we would, I would hide in the cement mixer when we were playing hide and seek. That was my favorite place to hide.
And then when I did it, it started to turn and I fell out and broke and I hurt my back.
Oh,
Oh my God.
Hi, Judy. We're doing a family
Daddy,
history.
hi, Judy.
what else, Mary?
Hi, Johnny.
What other stories about growing up?
I can
You're
tell you
all
a story. I can tell you a story about school. One day, your mother, Helen, and I decided to play hooky. So we went to the neighborhood dime store, and we spent the whole day wandering around the dime store. And neighbors saw us and told my mother, "Do you know that Helen and Betty were not in school, that they were in the dime store?" Well, when we got home at the proper time after school, our mother was standing there and she said, "Why did you skip school?" And we were like, "How did you find out that we won't ever do it again?" And we were terrified, but that was the one and only time, I think, I don't know about you, but that's the only time I ever skipped school.
Well, I remember.
But you know that, excuse me, part of that story, I remember, there were some tough kids that started to pick on Helen outside the dime store.
Oh, yes. Eva
Remember?
had a fit. She went and ran after him to beat him up.
No, that was me. That was me. Remember, I started pounding on their back and I said, "You leave my sister alone."
Is that the one that they thought I was staring at a blind man?
Yes.
Staring at the blind man.
That was on.
You know what I
that
was
was
doing?
on- That was the
I was
dime
looking.
store on Livernois Avenue.
Yes,
Livernois
in front of
Avenue.
Kresge's or something like that, right?
And there was a blind person standing out there, and we were just going back home, and they just wanted to pick a fight.
No, I think I was looking at him. I
Well-
was feeling sorry that I didn't have some money to put in his car. So I was probably contemplating, you know. So the couple of these they were toughies.
So who did they pick on? The younger one. you
Of
know?
course.
So then I
They
really,
were circling around. I was all coming back.
yeah,
Oh
so
my
I
God.
became very protective, of course, my kid sister, and I started pummeling them on the back. I said, "You leave my sister alone." And I said, "Helen, run, run."
Oh my.
And then we ran off. Then we got help from Grandma for skipping.
Yeah.
I have some things that really bothered me in the growing up period is where my mother depended on me mostly to clean house after I got home from school. So I remember scrubbing floors. Do you remember Dorothy used to go up and make the bed. When she used to go upstairs, she would stay up there all day long. She played. And my mother knew that if she went upstairs, it would never get done. It'd take all day to do it. But she'd always send me because, and she used to call it, go ahead and clean the house, but make it you know, which means hurry up and do it fast, you know, no matter how you do it, just get it over with. And I remember resenting having to be the one to do
Well, she
all the
kept you
dirty
out of
work.
school
Is
quite a
that
bit.
where all of
Yeah.
that animosity comes from?
Yeah, but you forgot to say that when I cleaned the house when I did a good job. They said
Yeah,
I
you know
was
what you
slow.
did? You
I
played with
was
paper dolls.
I was
That
slow,
was me.
but I did a good
I was the one that
That
played
was
with paper
Helen.
dolls.
You played with Helen
That was
paper
Helen.
dolls.
No,
You did,
no,
both
no.
of you. I did all the dirty work. I did all the dirty work.
Well, I think that probably the most outstanding things that I remembered was when any of us were ill, the relationship to our father when there was illness. That seemed to have had a very big impact on my life. My life. I'm
In
speaking
what
for myself.
way? How do you
Give
mean?
us an example.
Well, my first,
He never-
first experience of tremendous anger was when Betty got polio,
Oh,
and she was in bed for 3 or 4 days, and there were doctors that were coming and going, and they finally had determined that she had polio because of her neck. She couldn't bend her neck, and they had decided that she must go to the hospital immediately. And Grandpa was working on a job, and I was left home. I don't remember who took you to the hospital. Maybe a neighbor.
I think it was Al.
Al? She's in the hospital with polio, and my father comes home from work, and I remember him pulling the truck into the driveway to the backyard, and I ran out of the house real fast. And I said, Pa, guess what? Betty's in the hospital. She's got polio. And he says, get out of here, like that. And I said, it's true. And he said, what are you talking? He wouldn't go to see her. He absolutely was in complete denial.
He couldn't. Herman Kiefer, no visitors from.
Well, Ma was there,
No, not in the room.
not in the room, but he didn't even go to the hospital. My second, I don't know if this is not very nice, but
well,
I
and you
think
want to really hear something and not nice for you about you. You
About
wouldn't go
your
visit
Is
Mom
this
in the
part
hospital
of the
when you were
history
born.
that you
He wouldn't.
read?
No,
Why wouldn't
because
he?
you were a girl.
They never forgave me for that either.
You were a girl. He would not.
Forgave me. That's
What was it? They had hope for a boy? Is that there?
it was after 3 girls. He wanted a boy naturally. So I
He wouldn't visit.
disappointed him.
It was my mother's fault that she had a girl.
Yeah, in those
He
days it
wouldn't
was the
visit her.
woman's fault. Now the second experience I will tell you is when I had my appendix out. Now when I had an appendicitis attack, it was my mother who held my hand. It was my mother who stood next to the bed and who suffered every pain with me. And my father slept right through the whole thing. And then when they had decided that I must go to the hospital, it was my sister Betty who drove. Yes, and my father slept
Well, my father did a
slept
couple of
through
good
the
things.
whole
though.
thing and didn't believe it either until he finally did come to see me in the hospital, maybe the third day.
Well, I remember once I had an attack of terrible stomach pains, and my mother got me dressed. I guess he didn't believe in hospitals too much, and we were getting me dressed to take me to the hospital because I was doubled over with pain, very severe pain. And then what he did was, I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it. He went to the drugstore and got some citrate of magnesia, and he says, drink this. Now, if I really had appendicitis, it could have burst.
Yours
But-
were almost ready to burst, and your appendix were in the back instead of in the front.
No. I'm talking about the thing that he did. What happened was, it was true. It was a stomach pain, and it cleared me up, and my pain was
Oh.
disappeared It just disappeared completely. And I guess it was one of those experiences where I had eaten wilted lettuce that I never chewed. I just swallowed it, and it just got plucked up. So what he did was unplug me.
Ah?
Yep.
What about family trips? Did you ever go on picnics or family
Yeah, lots
outings?
of them. We went to Belle Isle. We used to go to Belle Isle. We used to go to Palmer Park. That was our the big thing. And then we went to the farm. Remember, Dorothy? We went to the farm. What farm?
in South Haven. He used to take us to a farm in South Haven. Well, he would take us to Belle Isle when it was too hot, and we didn't have screens on our bedroom windows, so we couldn't leave the windows open because there were
The
mosquitoes.
mosquitoes, yeah.
So we would end up either sleeping on the front porch
Where there were no mosquitoes.
at supper, or go to Belle Isle. Belle Isle was cool.
So Belle Isle was the place.
Yeah.
When you were growing up, what was the thing to do when you were teenagers and young adults? What was,
Oh,
what was the
Work.
No, group
Yes.
parties.
We'd stand on the
All I
corner
really
under the
remember is
street
working.
light and we would talk till midnight and just have a ball.
Yeah, and I
Really?
remember. Yeah, I remember.
Remember
going
in
to,
front of the
Did you ever
grocery
go to
store?
parties, Dorothy? Group parties, boys and girls parties is what we went to. Boys and girls parties.
Did you guys ever know any of your dates or boyfriends?
Was Dad supposed to go out with somebody else? Fixed up with somebody else?
With
Mother?
Dorothy.
What?
Was
I brought Dorothy home.
To meet my
I
father?
brought
Pete?
my husband. I brought Pete home
My husband.
for Dorothy.
What?
I don't remember that.
You remember dating Pete?
Do you remember Pete?
Oh, I think I do now. Then he went for
She
Eva.
went with, what's his name?
I went for somebody.
Oh, and then
Joe.
he went for Eva. Just didn't
See,
click.
my mother, yeah. You know what happened? We were double dated. We double dated, and we came home and sat on the couch, and I was sitting with this other fellow, and Pete was sitting with Dorothy, and my mother was sitting on one end too, and after the boys left, my mother said, "Oh, Pete he doesn't go for Dorothy. He's only has eyes for you." I said, "Oh, Ma, what are you talking about?" You know, but it turned out that's
Yeah,
the way it
that's
was.
what it was.
Wow. What other
Did you
things?
finally marry Dad? My father after that mother?
What other things did you do when you were growing up? What kinds of? What'd you do together? Did you do anything
Well,
together?
can I tell you something about my sister Helen? When she was a little girl, I want to bring out her natural talent. She would dance around the house, and she danced beautifully. So I says to my mother, "Gee, Helen's got a lot of talent. She should go to dancing school." And it turned out I took her on. We went on a streetcar, and I would take her to a dancing school, stay with her when she was through, and then bring her back home. And she just loved dancing, and this is how eventually she became a dancing instructor at a job as a
Because of
dancing.
Aunt Dorothy. That's the truth.
And
That's the truth. She was the one that took me. I was 11 years old.
I could see that she
Took me on a streetcar. She would go with me like 3-4 times until I learned to do it myself. Because we had a transfer to get to the studio, and it was a little tricky. So it was all Auntie Dorothy's doing.
There was a thing about the four of us where Dorothy was with Helen all the time.
Protect
they
me.
were a team.
She was like my child.
They were a team, and Betty and I were a team.
But you pretty much all got along pretty
very-
well.
Yeah, I would say so.
Except
me
they
and
would
Dorothy.
never let me sleep with them. I always had to sleep in the crib and I was already 12 years old.
It's true. She, poor thing, had her feet were sticking out
It
of
was
the
terrible.
slats
It was so
already.
uncomfortable.
I don't know why. Why weren't you allowed to sleep with them?
Because there are already 3 of you and there wasn't room.
Well,
Who was it that
if I
slept
was
with Al?
smaller than you.
Who
I
slept
don't
with
know.
Al? Nobody.
Nobody ever slept with.
Are you kidding me? Betty, I think it was you.
I never remember that. She was
I-
always in a
I
crib.
do. I blocked it out. I remember. I remember.
Why was there just one room? Is that? I mean, there was two
There were
bedrooms.
Three
Two-
bedrooms.
My mother and father had one,
And the girls had one and
Al
Al
had the other
boy
one.
had
And a
one bedroom all
private
to
room.
himself.
The smallest room.
Wow.
But there was, in the girls' room, there was
This
just
is
a
how we
double
slept.
bed. There was a metal double bed with a very thin, lumpy mattress on springs and a crib.
There was no mattress. We just slept on springs.
But you know what I remember? I remember the most wonderful transition of that room. When
when you came home.
Eve and Dorothy started working and earning some money, they saved up a little money and they decided they were going to redecorate the bedroom. They did it all in lavender,
I
even
remember
to the
satin-
wait a minute.
satin lavender.
Wait a minute.
Even to the lamp,
Wait
you
a
got
minute.
a lavender bulb.
I have been saving money to fix my teeth.
What's that got to do with redecorating the bedroom?
It was the money that I saved for my teeth that decorated that bedroom.
You told me Pa
No,
took
you
that.
said Pa took that.
And then I
money.
saved some more, and something happened, and I got disappointed again, and I said, the hell with it, and I went and I, that's what
Oh,
happened.
that was you. I thought it was
I
the
thought
two
that
of
we
you.
decorated the room when she came home from the hospital.
No,
because everyone
no.
was so happy.
No, but I remember when I saw that room, it was like I was in the movies. It was so gorgeous. It really,
It was, it was.
so
I
beautiful.
decorated, I
in
had
that,
that skirt around the table.
in that dingy,
Yeah, I,
dreary,
I did it.
dull, colorless home. To walk into that bedroom, it was like all of a sudden Technicolor.
that's
And there
what
was-
I
that's
saw.
the way I saw it. It was
Oh,
beautiful.
that was wonderful.
It was modest, but to me it was gorgeous.
$75 it took.
Oh, that was a lot.
Just 75, yeah, $75.
You guys getting tired out, or?
No, but I was thinking that Aunt Dottie may have something that Uncle Al may have confided to
Right,
her.
some
That
history.
she may
Let's get her.
have to offer.
Dottie, Dottie,
Dottie?
Dottie,
Dottie!
come here, Dottie.
Where is she?
Maybe Larry knows something too.
Oh, wait a minute, she's hard of hearing.
That's right. Where, somebody call Dottie. Where is she?
Judy, can you get your mother?
Dottie, come here. Sit down. Sit down here. I said hello to you, but you didn't hear me.
You mean I'm moving into the family?
Right.
Is that the part we're at?
We're the part with Al.
wanna touch
One
Al,
of the
yeah.
things about Al.
Which
talking-
side will there be
We
room
were
for
talking
her?
just
That
a
side or
back
this side?
history
Right next to
of
him.
childhood
Harry's
things.
doing a family tree.
Oh,
Okay. Now he wants to see how much you know.
About our family.
I'm going to talk about Uncle Al a little bit. Do you remember? Did he have any stories about growing up? Does
oh, did he have stories?
Oh, tell us, tell us.
The most famous one was that when he needed to get into the bathroom, it was a big problem because his sisters used to take turns letting each other in.
Oh, that was paranoia on his part.
That's what he told me.
Oh, that
And
was
then
true.
he was at the end of the line.
Yeah, he
That's all.
was.
When all of them had used the bathroom, then they'd let him in.
What else?
Another
Did he ever
one.
tell you stories about how Mom Pa came to the United States? Anything that maybe we are familiar with, since he isn't here to tell us about how Pa came to on the boat or anything?
No.
Or mother?
No, he never told anything about that.
Okay.
But the other thing is,
We won't
I
go into the
remember, who
partnership
was it?
arrangement.
One of the sisters took his radio and kept turning the station.
That was me.
You admit to it.
I'll tell you why I admitted to. First of all, he and my father bought the radio. Okay, so he felt he was boss of the radio. And no matter what station, when I was home, if I put on a station, he came home, he changed it to what he wanted
See,
it
there
to.
are two sides to every
Okay,
story.
all right, so one day, he comes home and I decided he was not going to change that station. So I stood right in front of the radio and I said, "You're not changing the station," just like that. And he was amazed that I stood up to him like that. And I don't know whether we got into a scuffle or not. I don't remember what the end result was, but I remember standing
Did
up to
somebody
him.
throw the radio out into the alley or
No,
something?
I don't remember
Oh,
that.
you don't think that's possible?
I remember about Al, he used to love opera,
That's right.
and he would sing right along with the singers. And
Shakespeare.
you know what? He had a beautiful, beautiful voice. He was real good at it. He knew all the opera songs. He was
And
great.
you know, later, he took, while we were married, he was taking voice lessons for a while
Yeah, I
with
remember.
Oscar Roman. Yeah,
I remember that.
yeah, he was taking voice lessons. Late, just recently, Larry took some of the LPs that we had, opera records, over to Rabbi Steiger's, because they have an old record.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll take a
They have an old record player
Yeah.
that can use the,
Yeah.
I don't know what the speed they were.
Yeah.
78s, I think, you know.
Anybody about to say something?
I was going to just kind of reminisce about some of my warmest feelings when I was young was when we all were in the living room with my mother and dad for an evening. And I remember the mohair sofa
Oh, yeah.
and the radio,
Mm-hmm.
the infamous radio, and we would listen to Yoo-hoo, Mrs. Goldberg. No, Mrs. Goldberg.
Yeah.
Wasn't that Molly
Goldberg's.
Goldberg
Yeah,
on
Molly
the
Goldberg.
radio? And some of the feelings I had with the whole family just sitting around in the living room and listening to these wonderful radio programs.
Yeah,
It just
that
makes me
was
feel
nice.
kind of warm and
The Lone
fuzzy.
Do you
Ranger.
also remember the player piano?
Yes,
Yes.
yes. The player
We had a
piano.
player
If I
piano.
never saw it at the house, describe it to me. Just talk about the things in it.
yeah.
Just walk me through it.
It was
Walk me-
a house where when you walked into the front door, there was a living room on the left, the dining
Right.
room right,
Right.
on the
On the
right,
right.
pardon me, on the right, and the living room right next to it. Then there, it was like a circle, and the circle was living room, dining room, kitchen, hallway, living room,
And
dining
then the
room.
stairway,
Stairway
to the
going
left,
upstairs.
Going out.
To the
And
back.
Aunt Eva once fell all the way down the stairs, and there was
A
a
window.
window at the
Your
lower
legs-
level,
your legs
and her
crashed
legs
through
went
the window.
right through the window, and she sat there and laughed and laughed and laughed. She was such a funny
Really?
sight.
Because my mother said, "Oi, oi, oi!" And I'm all right, and started to laugh. It was so funny for me to know that my feet were sticking out the window.
Now, in the dining room, we had this massive dining room table with a buffet that took up almost the whole dining
Yes.
room, didn't it?
You could hardly pull the chairs out.
Now, the Barrow Halls lived on one side of
Yeah.
it, I
Right.
believe.
Right.
Right.
And I know that George's father gave Al
Yes.
gold,
On Mezuzah.
but he also, yeah, he gave him a
When he
mezuzah.
went to war, yeah.
That's true, when he
Yeah.
went into the army. And I think also a gold coin, maybe.
Yeah.
And on the other side, what was the name of the people?
Bettman. Either
Oh, yeah,
Driscoll's
the
or
Bettman.
Bettman.
The
Driscoll.
The
Driscoll.
Driscolls, right.
Gentile family.
I think
We're
the
not-
Bettmans were
Paul Bettman.
the Bear Halls, and then the Bettmans, and then the Gittlemans.
Yes.
And then
No,
across the
no,
street
no.
was the
The
Whittenburgs.
Bettmans were next door to us on one
On the
side,
right
and the
side
Barrow
of
Halls
us.
are on the other side.
Okay, so
and
then,
the Gittlemans
and
were
then
on
the
the
Driscolls moved in after the Bettmans
Right.
moved out?
Right.
Okay.
Was it mostly a Jewish neighborhood?
Yeah, well, not half and half.
50-50, I think. Because the Pashers lived across the street.
Yeah.
Who lived across the
Pasher,
street?
Joan Pasher was my close girlfriend. Joanne Pasher.
The happiest times I can remember is the Jewish holidays. My
Not
mother
me.
used to carry out all the Jewish traditions
How
for the
come?
Jewish holidays.
Because she was always aggravated and
Doing a lot of
upset,
cooking,
you know.
and we all clean the house, get it prepared for the house. I remember that so clearly. It was a real happy time.
Not for me, Dorothy. Not for me. You know why? Because Ma had to do all this cooking, and she had to have more people, and she had to do a lot of hard work cleaning up the house, and she would be screaming at all of us, and her blood pressure would go up, and her face was real red, and
But imagine the
she,
different
I
perceptions.
hated
a
the
different
holidays
way.
because of it, because she was in a bad mood.
Well, they didn't seem religious to me. I mean,
No.
what I've
They never, well, they went to, that's
Not
not
by-
true,
not-
because,
not in my
that's
era.
not true, because my earliest remembrance was when I was a little girl, my mother used to make me turn on the stove on the Sabbath because she wasn't allowed to do that. But it's okay for a little girl to do it. It was like a mitzvah. She used to say it was a mitzvah to do that. And they really observed all the holidays. I used to go to synagogue with my parents. I went to Hebrew school and learned how to read and write Jewish.
How long?
Well, I was like 12 years old. I mean, I was
How many months or years did you go to?
a couple of years. I'd say a
We
couple
went one
years.
day, right?
One day.
One day, Betty and I.
Yeah, until
know, I
someone told them that they were communists.
Ain't spade dry fear, but the kid is in That's all I learned.
I remember,
You know, that kind of stuff we learned Hebrew. I mean, I learned that. I remember the rabbi came over hitting you over the hand if you didn't do it right. Yeah, so there was religion. There was religion.
Talk about Al and Pa's relationship.
His only son.
Well,
You would probably know more
Well-
about that than we do.
Wait, I wanted to say, in terms of holidays, I remember one holiday we went over to Eve's, and I said, "Oh, Eve, this is such wonderful gefilte fish. Who made it?" And she said, "It's Mother's," but she didn't mean
Mother's
her
Day.
mother's. She
It was
meant
Mother's Day.
Mother's
Canned Mother's.
canned Mother's.
I remember that. I remember
Yeah,
that.
it was so funny,
You got a big kick out of that.
Well, Al and his dad, that was a story. Because there was always controversy over money, always. And who did it right, and who knew better. And Al, once in a while, used to humor your dad. But then he would get fed up, you know, and he would become very ornery, really. And ultimately, it ended up with them breaking the partnership. You know,
How long did they work together?
For years.
For years, right.
Years.
Many years. But see, then Al insisted on being more, you know, autonomous, and he wanted to be recognized for his work and his knowledge, and his ideas that he would contribute, you know. But Grandpa really was not that willing to make any concessions that Al might know anything better.
Right.
But he taught Al all he knew as far
Yeah,
as
he
bricklaying?
He
Taught him
taught
everything?
him what he knew about, all he knew about it. I don't know that he taught as much as Al picked it up.
Was that David's dream that his son was going to be a bricklayer, or did he want
Well, that
Al
I
to do
don't
something
know.
else?
No, it was with the idea that Al would be his partner, he raised Al so that he could be working with him. And this is why he resented having girls, because girls could not do what a man could do. So he had the only one son. And I remember when my father had some surgery, and who did he call out for? "I want my son." He didn't say, "I want my daughter."
Really?
"I want my son. I want my son." Yeah.
Was there other favoritism? I mean, this might be a touchy subject.
Of
I mean,
course.
So Betty, I thought Betty was my father's favorite.
I was until she was born.
She was real good.
She was your mother's favorite.
She was very
I wasn't my
affectionate
mother's
with-
favorite.
You
with
were.
my father.
And you were.
No,
And
whose
Al,
favorite?
where does Al-
Mother's at the beginning.
Oh, only because I was the oldest daughter, yeah. Yeah, Dorothy got the
remember
hand
him
down.
telling- I remember
I thought I was
him saying
a
he
doctor.
scrubbed the floor.
And if you want to know
I never saw it. I used
where
to scrub the floor.
Grandpa used to hide his poker money,
Yes,
it was the third door down. You pull it out, and it's right in the back.
Darling, that was my money that he stole.
Okay, now we got to the dirt. Now what's
Oh,
going
now
on?
we're getting to the juicy
That's
stuff.
one of the times I was saving money to
juicy
fix
stuff.
my teeth.
But
I never heard about it.
And he pulled, and I hid it in the drawer, because I know that you can't have money laying around with my father around. And he took the money, and then when I cried bitter tears, believe me, and I said, "Why did you take my money?" And he was very casually said, "I needed it more than you did." That was his stock answer. I
Probably
needed
did.
it more than you did.
What
He
did-
may have.
What did
may
he
have.
use it for, do you think?
Food.
Terrible thing he did.
I remember that Al used to say that he always had this image in his mind of your mother, your mother, running after your father in the morning.
For $2
For-
every day.
Just the
For
money for
$2
that
for the
day's
day.
food.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you know what happened? It was never enough, so my mother ran up a bill in the corner grocery store. And she ran it up to almost $100. And then the grocery man kept bugging my mother about it, and she kept saying, I'll pay you, and she didn't have a cent to pay him. And then one day the grocery man came over while my father was home, when he came home from work. And he confronted my father with it. And my mother was so upset. Oh, she was so terrified. But my father, he took it with him. He did not get angry with my mother. He just said, well, I guess if you did it, you must have had to do it, something like that. He did not get angry with her. He paid the bill. He knew he wasn't leaving
Yeah, how
enough
could he
money.
get
He
angry?
knew how for $2 a day to feed 5 people, 7 people.
Yeah.
And he played poker. Did he use that for poker or just for
No,
to keep the
poker
family?
was something different. I
That
mean,
was
poker,
He had a different.
it had nothing to do with what he,
Yeah.
what he
So it wasn't for
Did he get
selfish
money to
reasons.
play
No,
poker?
no.
All right, where did he get the money to play poker?
From the food
What do you mean
money.
it's a different, it's a different
No,
thing?
that was when he was
No,
already,
that's when
when
he
he
could
played
afford it.
poker, he
When
was
he-
able
he
to
could
afford
afford
doing
it.
it.
What are you talking about? He gambled all his
According
life.
to him, he was able to afford it. Not that he gave us that much, because we had to beg for everything we got. We had to beg. We had to beg. I had to beg for ice cream cone, I had to beg for school supplies, I had to beg for everything.
We're the last ones to get our school supplies.
Right, right. So he was, and I understood that because he was so insecure money-wise in Europe. I mean, he was so
He
insecure.
really never learned how to be a father.
But did you understand
He
it
never
then?
learned how to be a father. He had
Did you
no
understand it then?
role model.
Really?
Yeah, I really, yeah, as I grew older, yes.
No, I mean, when you were a child though.
No,
And you
because
didn't-
I favored my father. I mean, no matter what he did, it was okay. I could
We
never
all
get
adored
any-
him.
I adored him.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
I
Why?
adored him.
Why?
Because with all of his faults, he was a very good, sweet, kind, gentle man.
He never hit us.
He never,
Never raised
never
his
was.
voice.
He only hit
No.
me once.
That's for crossing the
You
street.
mean by what he didn't do?
Well, yeah, we were resented all those things, but he was really a very good man. He really was.
Is this turning into group therapy?
No, no.
He was a good man.
Let me ask you,
Never
what
made trouble for anyone.
what was Sarah and David's relationship to each other?
Oh, they adored
loved
each other.
They
Adored.
adored each other.
My mother adored my father, and I can remember once he was shaving in the bathroom, and I was little, and while he was shaving, she says, "Can I watch?" And he'd say yes, and while he had his arm up, and she said, "Look at those muscles."
Oh, is that funny?
Yeah, look at those muscles. Like she thought he was just
Oh,
awesome.
yeah.
And
They
he-
were a very loving
And she
couple.
said, "Oh, isn't he
Outside of
handsome?
money.
Isn't he handsome? He's such a handsome." She really adored him. She adored him.
They outwardly show a lot of affection to each other? did you
She
say?
was more affectionate. He didn't like to show in public because she used to complain to him a lot. "Why did you show me affection when we're out with other people? Show me affection." So he says, "Isn't it enough that I show you in bed?" What's more important, to show in public or to show it when we're in private? You know, that was his intention.
Were they pretty open with you guys about
No.
no,
About what?
just about everything?
That's it. No about everything.
About what?
You know, about
No
no,
about everything.
about the family's finances.
No,
about,
no.
We were never really,
We're talking about their feelings to you.
No,
They didn't.
no.
Well,
The only-
grandma-
my mother did.
grandma-
My mother did.
Yes, my mother.
her aggravations
With Auntie
Spraggy.
Spraggy.
That was the only thing that was a contention.
She was an extremely sensitive woman. Was always hurt.
Jealous, very jealous, very
Yeah,
sensitive,
jealous
overly
and-
sensitive.
Extremely. She was very heavy.
Do you remember that?
And she always felt inadequate and that
What she used to say is, "Who's going to want me with 5 children and being so fat?" That's what she used to say.
who's gonna
Who's
want
going to
her?
want? Yeah, because she's so upset with Pa
Oh,
gambling.
when she was mad at him?
You know, when he used to gamble, he says, "Who's going to want me?" Once she did walk out on him for 3 days.
You're kidding. Where'd she go?
This was on Cockeye Street.
Cocker Barrel?
I don't know where she went,
But
but
she had a
she
good
was
memory.
gone.
Maybe
was
she went to
gone.
Auntie Spraggy.
And then I remember looking out the window, waiting for her to come
Oh,
home.
how awful.
And for 3 days, I kept looking out the window, waiting for her. And my
Oh,
father.
You were left in charge?
I was home, and he came over to the window. Evidently he saw how sad I was, and he said, "Don't worry." He said, "She'll be back. She'll be back. She'll be coming back." You know, and sure enough, of course she did. But that was a terrible thing.
I never knew Ma did that.
Oh yeah, she did.
She was spunky, huh?
That took some guts, didn't it?
Sure did for someone.
But
who
then I
didn't
also
get around.
remember,
So
you know what else I
Couldn't
remember?
read.
Something really terrible. The dead of winter, my father had a car, and it was what you call, they had on the sides, they didn't have windows, they had these plastic windows, and that
They didn't have plastic
snapped
in
on the
those
sides.
days. Celluloid.
Celluloid, that was called.
Cellophane.
And he was supposed to take care of us. I mean, it was my brother and me, and I think Dorothy was in the car too. She was very, very young, and it was really cold, and there's no heat or air conditioning in the car. And he said, he stopped someplace, and he said, "Stay here for a few minutes, I'll be right back." He didn't come back for 3 or 4 hours. We were in the car while he was playing cards.
Oh my God.
Now I remember. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I remember a story that weren't you guys in a car and a train was coming?
Oh, yes.
What's that story? 'Cause
Oh, I don't remember that.
Oh, yes.
that
We were
reminds
going
me
to
of this.
South Haven. Betty and I were in the back seat, and all of a sudden we were in a little town, and there were tracks going all over the place, and the light with the signal was on, the ding donger, and
I remember that.
and then he stops right on the tracks.
Oh, God.
So we're screaming, Pa, back up! You're on the tracks. The train. You could see a train was coming, and the tracks were going all. You couldn't tell which track that train was on, and he was laughing. The more we screamed, the more he laughed.
He was frightened.
He could have backed up.
No, he was confused.
So what happened? The
Or
train
teasing.
crashed?
He became confused. He
All he had to do was
he
back
wouldn't
up,
tease them.
get off. He had plenty of time, but he just sat there and laughed. And that train came by, and the car shook. It was that close.
Oh, my. That's terrible.
You know,
I remember a story when we were very little. We'd come back from visiting maybe Aunt Sproggy, and it was cold. And before we could get into the kitchen, my father first would get in with the broom, and he would stand guard over the stove. And then we would turn on the light, and all of the mice would, he'd open the oven, and all the mice would just stream out of that oven, and he'd be there with the broom and whack out.
I don't
And
remember
Helen and
that.
I would stand on the chair screaming.
I don't remember that.
I remember that.
The smell.
I remember.
Wow.
No, it was cold, and the little mice would come in for warmth.
Well, you know what
I
happened?
remember that.
You know what
I was
happened
saying,
to
why
Aunt
didn't you
Betty
just turn the
once?
oven on?
We had a
Those
stoke
mice.
a coal furnace,
Yes.
and they used to pour the coal down
Down the
the
chute.
a chute from
Through
the
the
basement window. And then there was like a special little bin that you kept it. And then you'd have to dig the coal and shovel it into the furnace. Once Grandma and Grandpa went away, and he told Betty to put water. Make sure she put water. There's like a little container in front of the furnace that you're supposed to keep water, so I guess it doesn't crack, right?
I don't know.
So poor Betty, and I'm standing right behind her. She gets a pail of water, and she pours it, and her hand slipped, and the water shot into the hot coals, and there was a blast
Oh
of
my
black
God.
soot and coal. We got burned. You got burned on your face and your arms, and I did on my arms a little bit. You don't remember that?
I don't remember that.
I don't even.
I'm glad you remember that.
We were almost suffocated too.
Glad
It
you
did.
remember that.
Oh, my goodness.
What else? What other?
Oh,
So
yeah,
I
lots of
remember
things.
that
Well,
when-
during the Depression, my father used to, there wasn't any food in the house, so he used to get potatoes, and he would put them in the furnace. When you talked about the furnace, it reminded me of that. And he would put the potatoes in the furnace
the
and
best.
bake the potatoes because they turned the gas off. We didn't have gas. So we put the potatoes in the furnace, and
That was the best
that
potatoes.
was one of the meals that we had, just baked potatoes.
What was a
No.
typical meal during the Depression?
Milk and
Potato
bread.
soup. He used to make
He used to make
delicious
potato
soup.
potato soup, bread,
Milk
and
Potato
then,
soup with caraway seeds.
yeah, and then,
Oh.
and then they used to send us food because we were on welfare, and they would bring these hams, and my mother immediately took the ham and took it next door to Mrs. Driscoll because we didn't eat, she wouldn't have ham in the house, yeah.
You know, part of that's part of the background that when we moved into Huntington Woods, when they all wanted to build our house in Huntington Woods, Pa said, "What do you want to go there for? With all the doctors?" Is that right? Yeah. What do you need to go there for?
That's not your
Your station.
Yeah, that's right. Except my mother-in-law, your dear mother, said, "Dottie, you saved my life."
Yeah.
Oh, that was her
Mary and
standard.
her son.
Yeah.
That was the standard.
Yeah, you saved my life.
We would take her out, when she was alone, and we would take her out for the afternoon to our house or shopping. And she would, the first thing when she got in the car, she says, "You don't know how you saved my life."
Mine life.
Mine life, taking me out today.
Yeah, she
But
was
I would like to
darling.
tell you about my father. I remember, we all craved affection from him, and he was sort of, aloof.
Interesting.
And he got sick, and he couldn't work, and we all came to visit him. We'd all sit on the couch, and he put his arms around me and around another sister. And that's the first time he's ever done that. And I thought to myself, gee, he really did love us, he just couldn't show it, but now he's so sick. He's letting us know how much he really loves us.
Did he work up until the time he died?
He what?
No, he was retired.
He
He was
retired.
retired by
Okay.
just a few years, but he was still working in his early 70s.
And he worked on our house.
Yeah.
What did he die from?
Prostate operation. He had a massive heart attack after the operation.
How old was he when he died?
70, I think he was 74.
78?
No,
79,
no. Before he was 75. It was either 73, 74.
79.
Oh, he was older than that.
79,
79.
79.
Was it?
He wasn't 79.
Yeah, I
They
think
were
so,
both
yeah.
79.
Both of them, right.
They were both 79.
My mother was 73 when she
No,
died.
no,
Uh-uh,
76.
79.
76.
And what did your mother
You guys don't know anything.
My mother slipped on the rug and broke her hip.
She was trying to answer the phone.
There's another, and that was 9 months after my father died.
And they
The
took her to the
mailman.
hospital and they had to operate on her.
The mailman
And
knows.
the 11th day
I
after the
remember.
operation, the blood clot from the operation, she had a massive heart attack.
Which is rather common after
Yeah.
surgery.
Surgery.
At that age.
Was she fairly healthy when she was?
Fairly healthy, she just had
She just had
hypertension.
high blood pressure.
That's all she had.
She was having,
She was obese and she had hypertension,
and
that's
she
all.
had also had
Other
a
than
large
that, she
heart.
was
And
healthy.
she also used to say how she was a dancer when she was young.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
see?
yeah.
Uh-huh.
No, that's validated.
And you know, I could never quite imagine her small enough to be a dancer.
As heavy as she was, though,
She
when
was
they were at a
real light on
wedding
her
and
feet.
they would dance together, they
Yeah.
would do the Russian waltz. She was the lightest
She
of
was a
feathers.
dancer.
She
She
would
was.
just dance
She was a
beautifully.
dancer when she was a
And
young
I
girl.
remember your father used to do the Kazatsky.
Yes, we covered that.
And then Al picked that one up.
Right, right. The Russian
Yeah, I
Kazatsky.
think everybody's
Yeah.
getting tired.
Okay.
So, anything else you want to ask?
Well, maybe just summation.
Well, let's put it this way. We all got married. We have our children. The children would play together. We while we were all together in the same area, we sort of the children and the sisters sort of just got together, and we always had a wonderful time. And all we did was laugh and have a wonderful time together. That's what I remember.
The more
and we're
problems
still
we
doing
had,
it.
the more we laughed.
We laughed. We laughed
Right.
a lot. We
did
we
always
laughed
laugh.
a lot.
That's cute.
Yeah. We have a wonderful time.
I would like to sum up, looking back on our family, is as poor as we were, and as much as I felt deprived, I can look back on Grandma and Grandpa, my mother and father, as being classy people, high standards. My mother would always teach us to be ladies, to act like ladies, and conduct ourselves in the proper
Too
way.
much so.
Too much so, but
Too much so.
I don't think it was too much so.
It was.
Maybe in certain
No,
areas, but
Yeah.
and
It
my
left us
father,
inhibited.
just the way he conducted his life and himself and his high standards, I thought he was a fairly
He was a gentleman, let's put it
yeah
that way. He
classy
was a
man.
gentleman.
He was a classy man.
And my mother was a lady. I mean, but that's, I guess that puts it together.
Do we also have anything we want to ask?
Sharon, you got any
Any
questions?
questions from the audience?
No, most of my childhood memories revolve around Petoskey.
Right.
Friday night Shabbat dinners,
Yeah.
all these people around that table,
Mm-hmm.
chicken soup.
Right.
You taught me how to dry the dishes, I think one of you, Auntie Helen or Auntie Betty. You get a whole big stack of dishes and you dry the top of one and the bottom of the other, and then you take it and put it on the bottom and you dry the top.
It wasn't
Really?
It was Auntie Betty, somebody taught me how to dry.
Could be.
It's very efficient.
Did they ever talk about the old country from Russia before they came here?
Yes, everything was
He
better
was that
in Russia. Everything was
Everything tasted better.
It was a more beautiful country. The vegetables, the fruits were
Everything
much
tasted
tastier,
good.
and the candy. Don't ask. Candy, you don't have candy over here like they did over there. Right.
Well, it's always better over there. But
And-
over there now, they would much prefer being here because we have it so much better now.
Something to
And now there's close to 60 of us in this family, all from mom and dad.
Isn't that
Yeah,
amazing?
we turned out to be
59,
a big
right?
family.
Did you
60,
count?
60, right.
I got the count.
Did you get the 4 in Nevada?
Gary.
64.
Sherry did.
I got them.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I got 60.
So Mom and Dad didn't do so bad, did they? They didn't do so bad.
No. They were a loving couple, and they loved their children, and I think they tried to do the very best
That they
for
knew
their
how to
children.
do. That they knew how to do.
I have a question. What happened to the oil paintings?
They tried to teach us.
What
in the
are they?
living room. They had oil paintings done from photographs. They
Yes.
were in the living room.
For
so it was-
themselves.
I had my father's. I had my mother's too, but we had them stored away in our apartment, and somehow the who got it?
Mold or
Mold.
More than mold. It was the
Moisture.
Moisture?
no.
That was in the
What are the
basement.
bugs? What bugs eat
Yeah,
the
they were
house away? Eat
beautiful.
wood.
Termites.
Termites. The termites got it.
They got one up.
Yeah.
Oh, they were beautiful paintings.
So I still have my
I remember
father's. Yeah.
those.
I still have my father's picture.
They weren't oils, I don't think they were oils.
You
I
have a
remember
question?
their 50th anniversary too.
Yes, I do
That was
too.
a big
It was wonderful.
Finally got her diamond ring.
Yes.
What's that? What do you mean she got her?
Well,
wanted
she
a
never had
diamond
anything
ring
of value, you know, never
so
had it.
badly,
And
a diamond
the two
watch.
things that she got was a diamond watch and a diamond ring and her older years. That's after she was married 50 years, yes.
Right.
And she was so proud of it. She really loved it. She loved that ring and she loved that watch. Who's got it now?
Nobody.
Who's got what goods? Yeah.
Nobody.
Kathy's got the watch.
Does she?
The diamond ring is gone.
Sold it.
Well, we all sold it.
Oh, as a matter of fact, the diamond chips on this ring came from my mother's wedding band.
Oh.
Yeah, Norm saved about 7
Ma
of them.
did not have any diamonds in her wedding band. She had a solid gold band.
She got a diamond wedding band afterwards.
Oh, I never did
Yeah.
that. How come you ended up with it?
War.
I'm the oldest daughter.
Oh, I see. There are advantages.
Nobody else wanted it.
Because some of the diamonds were cracked, so we salvaged the ones, and this is and the diamonds are in this ring, all the chips, yeah.
Her name was Krosnopolsky.
Krasnopolsky.
And
And
remember
your
the two of you
grandfather.
went to a concert and there was a violinist by the name of Krasnopolsky
Yes, I
with a
remember
red
that.
beard.
Yes, I remember
Oh,
that.
And you went backstage to
Yes,
see him.
yes.
Remember?
I thought that was you.
Well, in Amsterdam,
It was
there's
Eva and
in the
Dorothy.
square in Amsterdam, the main square, there's a huge hotel called the Krasnopolsky.
Really? That's our relatives.
There's also a famous jurist that's in a book. His last name was Krasnopolsky.
Is that right?
Yeah,
A jurist?
a jurist.
Yeah, I think that's a common name.
I think it's a
I
common
think
name.
that's the name of a city in Russia.
Yes.
Krasnopolsky is the name of the city.
Sort of like Smith.
Harry, I want to let you know how much we appreciate you taking the
Yes.
time
Oh,
and
this is-
and the life and doing this because it's history.
oh, this is very important for me.
Can I have a copy? And I'd love to pay
Sure.
you for it.
No, don't worry about it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take
We're
both
gonna be
and
able to
slice
see
it.
this, right, on TV?
Yeah.
Oh, another 2 hours?
When can we see it?
60 minutes.
Well, I did in the supermarket and she started hugging
Closer
the
to
bar.
Yeah, but that's why you can't be seen.
Okay, Sharon,
What other
what are your memories of Grandpa Dave and Grandma Sarah?
A lot of my childhood memories revolve around Petoskey, where the sisters grew up, where my aunts and my mom grew up. And I always felt like I had 4 mothers and 2 daddies, because Uncle Al catered to me. I was the oldest grandchild. I was the first grandchild, and I really was catered to. And I remember going to Petoskey for Friday night dinners, and a lot of hustle and bustle, and everybody, all the aunts would be in the kitchen helping set the table or cook. And there was just so much activity, family activity, and my grandmother used to light the candles. It was a very nice, warm feeling on Friday nights.
You went every Friday night?
Just about I think we went over there every week for supper. And I remember my Aunt Helen and Betty walking me